Ahoy! Welcome aboard this episode of Archival Adventures. I hope that you're all having a good week. It is Wednesday. I still don't know how that happens, but it did. So we're here. Sorry, I'm just... Never mind. I'm seeing things in the background and they won't be visible for long. Clearly distractible. But it's stupid time and it's inexorable March. I mean, it is indeed March, and today is our first stream of the month. And we are revisiting the John Clark papers for more care and feeding of rockets. If you were here before, for the previous care and feeding of rockets, we read a document. Technically we read two, but only because I managed to squeeze in a second one at the end. It was really good. Yes, rockets. The care and feeding of rockets. So for anybody who was not here for the previous time that we looked at these papers, which was sometime last month, I don't remember exactly when, I will just quickly go over some of the bio info. I just saw who processed this one. It's Katie Britt. We miss having her around here. So John Drury Clark, born in 1907 in Fairbanks, Alaska, ended up going to the University of Alaska and Caltech in the late 1920s. Got a BS in physical chemistry, got a Master of Science from the University of Wisconsin, and a PhD from Stanford. In the early 30s, he worked with General Electric, but by the end of the 40s, he was working with the Naval Air Rocket Program, and he was there until he retired in 1970. He was the chief chemist at the Naval Air Rocket Test Station, and later its successor department. He worked in the Liquid Propulsion Laboratory at the Picatinny Arsenal in Dover, New Jersey. And so, under his direction, a new family of storable, high-energy liquid propellants, later used in the Apollo program, was developed by Navy civilian scientists in 1959. So, rockets, and rocket fuel specifically. And he worked... his work ended up being used by NACA and NASA. And of course, finding it is there. You're welcome to poke through it if you want. He was also a science fiction author, but we will not be looking at his science fiction work today, because today we are still focused on what we feed rockets, as in rocket fuel. We will eventually get to his sci-fi stuff. Also, I was poking around and found a nonfiction thing that he had in an issue of Analog in 1966 called Dimensions, Anyone? But it doesn't have anything to do with rocket fuel, so we won't be looking at that today either. But it is bookmarked for the future. Anyway, if you see something on there that you're interested in seeing, let me know. If it is related to rocket fuel, we can look at it today. Otherwise, I will make a note of it for one of the future streams where we look at stuff from this collection. I imagine one or two more probably, because he's a really good writer, and I definitely want to get to some of his correspondence with other sci-fi authors like, Isaac Asimov, Ben Bova, John Campbell, Sprague de Camp. You know, some of those names that we should recognize, right? But that is for the future. Patience. Anyway. Um, let's start in looking at something. I don't know. I apparently last time after the stream, I went through and picked out additional folders that would be relevant. It was nice of me to do that because I didn't have time to look through and identify folders that we should look at today. So it was lovely of me to have prepared that like a month ago. This one is what makes a high energy propellant. So I suppose we will find out. I will butcher the mathematical notations insofar as I will not know how to read them. But that's fine. I am not a significantly maths person, but I find it interesting. I'm just not super conversant with exactly how to read it. I'm much better with medical terminology. Anyway, what makes a high energy propellant by John D. Clark? And clearly this was one of his speeches. It doesn't say on the folder what it was for. We've got various versions. A lot of them seem like they're probably the same. But yeah, I don't know where he was presenting. But this appears to be a text of a talk of some sort. Mr. Chairman, gentlemen, I have been asked to speak to you on the subject of what makes a high-energy propellant. This sounds complicated, but it is not. The mathematics involved are, in principle, about as abstruse as counting on the fingers, and the information presented is free for anyone to use, if you will. The laws of thermodynamics are not classified, although I have met engineers who apparently view them with some disdain, and there are many salesmen in the propellant business to whom they are obviously a completely closed book. Let us look into this business of specific impulse, the thrust of a rocket divided by the rate of consumption of the propellants. The equation that you usually see is this one. I sub SP equals the square root of 2J over G times Y over Y minus 1 times R over W times T sub C times I minus P over E, or P sub E over P sub C to the Y minus 1 over Y power. The power of Y minus 1 over Y. Anyway, I have no idea if I read that anywhere near correctly, but you can see the equation there on the page if you care to look. There's no, 2J. I was like, where J is Joule's constant. Okay, I don't know what Joule's constant is, so we may need to review that. I mean, Joule, I assume it's unit of energy. G, the acceleration of gravity, that symbol. That is a lowercase Greek letter, and I am not super conversant with lowercase Greek letters. If anybody wants to weigh in on what letter that is, I just need to print out a guide to lowercase Greek letters so that I have it for when I do these things. That is a gamma, lowercase gamma. Yay! Okay. Gamma, the ratio of the specific heats of the gases in the combustion chamber. R, the universal gas constant. W, the average molecular weight. T sub C, the chamber temperature. And P sub E and P sub C, the exhaust and chamber pressures, respectively. This equation looks like a mess and can be highly deceptive. Okay, but before I dive into the other thing, let me find Joule's constant. In case there's anybody that watches that doesn't know what it is, because, you know, I don't necessarily know what it is. I mean, I know, in theory, I know conceptually what it is, but I don't know what it is, if that makes sense. Anyway, we're gonna look. We'll see what it gives me. Joule-Thomson effect. Well, okay, so yeah, just Joule. The Joule is the unit of energy in the International System of Units. In terms of International System of Units base units, 1 joule corresponds to 1 kilogram meter squared per second squared. Equation shown there. 1 joule is equal to the amount of work done when a force of 1 Newton displaces a body through a distance of 1 meter in the direction of that force. It is also the energy dissipated as heat when an electric current of 1 amp passes through a resistance of 1 ohm for 1 second. It is named after the English physicist James Prescott Joule, 1818 to 1889. Okay, so according to the International Bureau of Weights and Measures, the joule is defined as the work done when the point of application of 1 meter kilogram second unit of force, 1 Newton, moves a distance of 1 meter in the direction of the force. So it's a measure of energy. And it's a standardized measure of energy. The Newton is the unit of force in the International System of Units. It is the force that accelerates a mass of 1 kilogram at 1 meter per second squared. Which hopefully some of you understand. I understand all of the words. And I generally understand what it's saying, but I can't really picture it because I can't picture things in my head. So watching a demonstration of it would be much easier for me, but I generally get the concept. And hopefully you do too. Anyway, so he's going to transform this equation to make it less messy. However, an extremely simple transformation may clarify things a bit. I sub SP equals the square root of 2j over g times the square root of h over m times the square root of I minus p sub b over p sub c to the power of r over c sub p. Still as clear as mud to me, but there it is. Apparently that is a clearer equation. And apparently these were not y's. These were gammas. Anyway, the first term we may as well ignore, since it comprises only universal constants about which we can do precisely nothing. In the second, or energy term, H is the heat release when a mass, m, of propellant is reacted. At 25 degrees C, plus the sensible heat of the reaction products above 0 degrees Kelvin. And in the third, or efficiency term, C sub P is the average molecular specific heat of the reaction products under a constant pressure. The other symbols are as before. So we see that the performance of a propellant or propellant combination is, at a given pressure ratio, a function only of the specific heat release of the reacting propellants and of the C sub P of the products. Also, he has these lovely slides that are printed on photo paper, and I'm not sure what projector he would have been using with these. I suppose these would have been used to make transparencies, but oftentimes we get the transparencies in the paper, so I don't know. The interaction of these two factors is clearly shown in slide 3. Is this slide 3? Performance of heterogeneous exhaust products. I think that this is slide 3. It's the third one if you count both of these as 1 and 2. Oh, but we have this one that is labeled A. I don't know which one is the third slide and which one isn't. Anywho. I assume his audience understands more of this. Last time we ran across something where he was very good at explaining it to a lay audience, like people who wouldn't necessarily know. And in general, I think he's still got that, but it feels like this was written for a more knowledgeable audience. The abscissa is the square root of the specific energy release in kilogram calories per gram. And the ordinate is R over C sub P, ranging from 0 for solids and liquids to 0.4 for a perfect monatomic gas like helium. The contour lines are lines of constant specific impulse calculated at 1000 over 14.7 psia, pounds per square inch absolute, which we learned last time. I do think that this is it. I don't necessarily do well reading graphs. Anywho, thus the possible combinations of energy and C sub P, which will yield any specified ISP, are immediately apparent. And no, not ISP as in Internet Service Provider. It's the I sub SP that was being solved for in the equation. Okay. Just because, while I pronounced the word, I have no idea of its meaning, I'm going to pull up a dictionary for myself and look up the word abscissa. I have a inkling of what it means, but I don't know that I've ever actually seen this world. In plain Cartesian coordinates, the x-coordinate of a point, its distance from the y-axis measured parallel to the x-axis. The horizontal or x-coordinate of a point in a two-dimensional system of Cartesian coordinates, the distance from the y-axis measured parallel to the x-axis. Okay. As compared to, like, the ordinate. I mean, I probably have encountered the word before, but I definitely didn't remember. Stephen Joyce! Hello! Thank you so much for the 56-month resubscription. Hope you're having a good day. And Hannah, thank you for the 90 stream streak. Oh my gosh. That is many, many, many. I think I've been to that many of my streams. But I didn't think anybody else had. Yes, 9-0, Lord Portico. We're having fun with maths that I don't understand today. So I'm just reading them, but I don't actually know what they say. Okay, now, as the heat of formation of the exhaust products is generally much larger than the heat of formation of the original propellants, it is the specific heat of formation of these products which is generally the dominating factor along the energy axis. Yeah, exactly, Hannah. There's a lot of words here that I understand individually, but I do not understand any of this maths. Yes. Um, and their C sub P is the factor that determines the efficiency of conversion of the thermal energy to the desired mechanical energy. So, this may be obvious, and the obvious, although some people seem to be able to ignore it, is something that I don't like to belabor, but it cannot be put too strongly. The way to get specific impulse is to pick your exhaust products, not primarily your propellant. In other words, look at what's coming out of the nozzle before you worry about what you're going to put in at the other end. There we go. There's him boiling it down to language that normal people can understand. We do just that thing on slide 4, where all of the probability exhaust products are shown. Yeah, these are backwards. This was slide 3, because this is slide 4 and it has the various lines indicating the different exhaust products. And if you were to like zoom in far enough to actually have the ability to read the tiny print on here, it's giving chemical formulas for different exhaust products. I don't know why in the papers this one was before this one, but that's not the order they are in being described. Anywho, it's always fun when I'm going through a thing that I find really interesting but have no idea what it actually says. The HM is the molecular heat of formation at 25 C from the elements in their standard states, plus the sensible heat of the product about 0 Kelvin, all divided by the molecular weight. The R over C sub P is averaged over the expansion process. The heat of formation of the original propellants would affect the energy term somewhat, shifting a product to the right for endothermic propellants or to the left for exothermic ones, and the R over C sub P will be affected somewhat by dissociation, etc. But the approximation shown is adequate for discussion purposes. It should be noted that the heats of formation of some of the products are very much in doubt. Notably these. I need my periodic table again. And once again, I need to like make sure I have one of these available. Okay, I have no idea how to say this one. Beryllium fluoride. Oh, it's because I misidentified things. Okay, OBF. So that's oxygen, boron, and fluorine. Again, I'm just going to go the easy route. Boron monofluoride. OALF. So oxygen, aluminum, and fluoride, which I assume would be aluminum monofluoride. And BF3, which would be I know it's wrong, but my brain said borine. Borine trifluoride, or boron trifluoride. I like borine better. Anyway. but the general picture is unlikely to be changed much by the future refinement of the data. Oh, Stephen, I did find a video game focused on chemical formulas. I forget what it's called, but I was just searching in Steam and I found it. I have yet to actually look at it to see if it's something I wanted to get, but somebody made one. I'm hoping it's more sophisticated than like Math Blaster, although I do have fond memories of Math Blaster from when I was a kid. Several things are at once apparent. The first is the obvious one, deriving directly from Murphy's Law. There are very few exhaust products combining a high R over C sub P and a high H over M. Okay, I really need to just refer back. Except that it doesn't give me all of them. So, like, I don't know what C sub P is. He doesn't define that. Oh, average molecular specific heat of the reaction products under constant pressure. R is the universal gas constant. So R over C sub P is the universal gas constant divided by the average molecular specific heat of the reaction products under constant pressure. Now I understand why R over C sub P is what he writes. And H over M is the heat release over the mass. Let's see. Okay, if you have a good energy release, you generally have a poor efficiency, and vice versa. You just can't win. The second is the obvious fact that solid or liquid propellants, no matter how energetic they are, by themselves... The second is the obvious fact that solid or liquid propellants, no matter how energetic, are, by themselves, precisely no good at all. The third is that hydrogen, even with a zero heat of formation, it's at the standard conditions, is a surprisingly good exhaust gas. Its sensible heat at 25 C, above 0 Kelvin, combined with its low molecular weight and good R over C sub P, produces an impulse of some 250 seconds. And if you heat it to 1000 degrees Kelvin, by a nuclear pile or something, you can get a specific impulse higher than that of anything else on the chart. Another conclusion, if you will pardon my frankness, is that a lot of the work on light metal additives to propellants has, as far as performance is concerned, been money down the drain. Let us consider lithium, which may, sometimes, be substituted for hydrogen in a propellant molecule. Let us say that we burn it with fluoride and get lithium fluoride as an exhaust product. Well, if you look at lithium fluoride on the chart and compare it with the hydrogen fluoride that you'd have had if you hadn't gone to all the trouble in the first place, you'll see that our progress has not been exactly earth-shattering. Or we can burn it with oxygen and get that thing. Lithium monofluoride. Or dilithium monoxide, but I don't know that that's actually what it is. Li2O. Oh, lithium oxide is all it is. Depending on how much hydrogen we have in the system. Again, the progress we have to report doesn't exactly rate headlines. Another sore point is the question of the so-called exotic or boron fuels, burned with either oxygen or fluorine or with both. The gaseous exhaust products include boron trioxide? Yeah, I definitely need practice here. Yeah, boron trioxide. Or boron trifluoride? Yep. Or hobo. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to look it up, but it just says hobo. I have found things that reference this chemical, but nothing that actually says how to pronounce it. I just love that it's hobo. Okay, orthoboric acid. Yeah, it's orthoboric acid. Hobo. Or OBF. Boron monofluoride. We've seen that one before. Anywho, the gaseous exhaust products include those. As you can see, they are all quite energetic, but as usual, when you gain in the energy, you lose in the R over C sub P term, making them in general inferior to plain water as exhaust gases. One more conclusion is that all of the conceivable exhaust products, carbon is the one that you don't want. It contributes no energy, and with an R over C sub P of 0, it is not going to help in the conversion of any energy from anywhere else. It just goes along for the ride and drags its feet. Since hydrogen is such a good exhaust gas and weighs so little per mole, we can frequently upgrade the performance of an energetic product with a poor C sub P term by the addition of judicious quantities of hydrogen to the system. Slide 5. Which is this one, which has hydrogen and carbon dioxide plus two OH sub 2. Yeah, no, I'm not going to sit here and look up all of the chemical formulas today. I just don't know what they are off the top of my head. Anyway, I find it interesting, but it takes time on stream. Anyway, slide 5 shows this for the case of carbon dioxide, which I should have gotten somewhere in there. The water-gas equilibrium enters into this, of course, but the performance of the system is affected so little by the exact equilibrium composition that it isn't worth taking the trouble to calculate. As you can see, as hydrogen is added to the carbon dioxide, R over C sub P increases rapidly. Yes, it is lots of things to look up. While the specific energy term drops slowly, so that the performance peaks at about 5 moles of hydrogen to 1 of carbon dioxide, and then drops down to that of pure hydrogen. The effect of nitrogen or carbon monoxide is similar, but much less marked. The contribution that solid or liquid exhaust products can make to really high performance is questionable, to say the least. BCO. Borane carbonyl is the most energetic species shown on the chart, but by itself, with an R over C sub P of 0, it will do no good at all. The usual answer to this problem, as in the case of carbon dioxide, is to add a gas with a high R over C sub P, preferably hydrogen, and hope that the combination will give us a respectable ISP. Again, not internet service provider. Slide 6, another incomprehensible graph, at least for me. Specific impulse as a function of specific energy release of R over C sub P, which lots of lines. I'm sure it has meaning to the people that were listening to this, but I lost my spot. Slide 6 shows the result of adding hydrogen to Bn. Boron nitride. I would have said nitrate, and I would have been wrong. Boron nitride. The energy term drops slowly as hydrogen is added, but R over C sub P increases rapidly, until the performance peaks at about 330 seconds. When there are about 6 or 7 moles of hydrogen to 1 of boron nitride, as more hydrogen is added, the performance tends, of course, toward that of the pure gas. Of course. But there is a joker, as usual, in this procedure. Calculations of the performance of systems with two-phase, gas plus solid or liquid, exhaust streams are generally based on the implicit but unstated assumption that the solid or liquid particles remain in complete mechanical and thermal equilibrium with the gas during its passage through the exhaust nozzle. The temperature drop may be from 1000 C to 2000 C in a matter of, say, 100 microseconds, and it strains my credulity to believe that complete heat transfer can occur that rapidly. The rate, of course, depends on the size of the particles in the condensed phase, but for any particles larger than single molecules, which would be a gas anyhow, complete equilibrium is hardly conceivable. Let us then, for a change, assume that the exhaust passes through the nozzle so rapidly that no heat exchange occurs. That is, the particles are essentially insulated from the gas during the expansion process and emerge from the nozzle at the chamber temperature. Okay, I don't even know if I have 7 slides here. Anyway, the results, as you can see, are a lot different from the equilibrium case. We can't see, but that's fine. And a great deal more depressing. The facts of the case are, naturally, somewhere in between, but calculating exactly where is out of the range of practical politics. So, if some salesman tries to sell you a propellant system which involves a heterogeneous exhaust stream, pay no attention to the calculated performance figures, even if he swears up and down that they are the results of an exact, God save the mark, machine calculation. An IBM 704 is quite a gadget, but it will only do what it's told to do, and it does not include in its components any device that will screen out phony assumptions or bad thermodynamics. Demand experimental performance data, certified by the Bureau of Standards, 3 GPAs, the Better Business Bureau, and a properly obtained minister of the gospel, and then use a lie detector. I love. See, that's the turn of phrase that I like his stuff for. I just have to say it again. Because this was a really good part. Just encore. So if some salesman tries to sell you a propellant system, which involves a heterogeneous exhaust stream, pay no attention to calculated performance figures, even if he swears up and down that they are the results of an exact, God save the mark, machine calculation. An IBM 704 is quite a gadget, but it will only do what it's told to do, and it does not include in its components any device that will screen out phony assumptions or bad thermodynamics. Demand experimental performance data, certified by the Bureau of Standards, 3 GPAs, the Better Business Bureau, and a properly ordained minister of the gospel, and then use a lie detector. He's basically calling bullshit. So, what makes a high-energy propellant? Or, put it this way, what doesn't make a high-energy propellant? First, solid exhaust products, particularly carbon. Avoid the latter, as you would avoid a jealous husband equipped with a shotgun. Incidentally, one neat way of pulling this off when you are burning a hydrocarbon, say with fluorine, is to add enough oxygen to the system to take the carbon to carbon monoxide. The oxygen and the fluorine arrange a Jack Sprat sort of marriage, the fluorine going after the hydrogen and the oxygen going after the carbon, so that you get hydrogen fluoride plus carbon monoxide for exhaust gases, a high energy release, and a good R over C sub P, and a performance that makes everybody happy. Except for the environmentalists. Because releasing a bunch of hydrogen fluoride and carbon monoxide into the atmosphere is probably not a good idea. Second, complicated, polyatomic exhaust products will do you little good. Their high energy release is generally overbalanced by their low R over C sub P, so that no matter how exotic or expensive the propellants that produce them may be, the results are generally not worth the trouble. What will give you specific impulse in gratifying quantities is a system which produces a large amount of hydrogen, plus a highly exothermic exhaust gas to warm it up, preferably one with a good R over C sub P of its own. Hydrogen fluoride is the ideal, but even water is not to be despised. Dihydrogen monoxide. Water. In short. Yeah, in short. Make it as simple as you can. And before you hopefully squirt 2 propellants into a rocket, consider, what will the harvest be? The opinions expressed in this paper, no matter how violently, are those of the speaker alone and are not necessarily shared by the Bureau of Naval Weapons, the Navy Department, the Department of Defense, or by certain propellant salesmen. For those desiring further information, this paper contains the substance of a chapter of a forthcoming book, The Chemistry of Rocket Propellant, by Dr. Jack Gordon of Reaction Motors, and by myself. Advertisement. I love the disclaimer at the end. So, what makes a rocket propellant? Or what makes a high energy propellant? I think that was as clear as mud. I don't think mud would make a good high energy propellant. I do like when his wit gets to show through, and I know it'll be interesting to encounter some of his science fiction, because he's definitely a good author. Let's see. Considerations in the choice of a rocket propellant? Oh, this one appears to be a report for the U.S. Naval Air Rocket Test Station. Presented at a meeting of the American Rocket Society in February 1951. We'll see how dense this one is. Considerations in the choice of a rocket propellant. I hope that you will forgive me if I read my talk tonight rather than deliver it off the cuff. There are several reasons for this procedure, but the most important one is that otherwise I might wander somewhat, say something I shouldn't, and then have an appointment with a firing squad at the first suitable sunrise, which from my point of view at least would be deplorable. I wish to discuss some of the factors which must be considered in choosing a rocket propellant combination for a given vehicle or missile. The normal tendency among those who haven't had a bit of painful experience in the field is to look through the chemical rubber handbook for the reaction which gives the greatest heat of reaction per gram of reactants, and to decide that that reaction is the ideal power source for a rocket. It may be just that, of course, but the chances are that it won't be. There are a lot more things to be considered than the energy of reaction. First, we must remember that the performance is not exclusively a function of the energy release per gram of propellant. For the benefit of those who came in late, it may be desirable to give a definition or two with a word or so of explanation. We generally describe the performance of a propellant combination in terms of specific impulse, or ISP, again, not Internet Service Provider, which is the number of seconds for which a given mass of the propellants can, ideally, exert a force equal to its own weight. If this figure is multiplied by the acceleration of gravity, 32.2 feet or 9.8 meters per second, the result will be the exhaust velocity in feet or meters per second, respectively. The specific impulse may be expressed by the equation ISP equals 6.95 times the square root of whatever that is. I have no idea what the triangle means. I apologize. Whatever the triangle is, h over m times, I believe that is a lowercase zeta. But I am not truly certain that it's a zeta. It might not be. No. That might be a poorly written lowercase gamma. Who knows? Not I. Anyway. Oh, where triangle H is the heat of reaction in British thermal units per pound molecular weight of a given reaction. M is the total molecular weight of the reactant. 6.95 is a constant, including the conversion factor of thermal to mechanical energy. The gamma zeta, whatever, is the efficiency of utilization of the energy of the reaction. We will come back to gamma zeta, whatever, in a moment. Just from me, like, trying to write the character in the air, it looks like it should be a gamma, but that does not look at all like a lowercase gamma. It looks much more like a lowercase zeta, but I'm really not super conversant in lowercase Greek letters, so I'm just looking at an image from online to help figure out what it is. Anyway, the specific impulses of various propellant combinations run from about 200 to about 350 seconds, just to give you an idea of the order of magnitude of the things we are talking about. The hypothetical atomic-powered rocket in Bob Heinlein's picture Destination Moon had a specific impulse of 943 seconds, which is something that rocket men like to dream about. Oh, now there's something to look up. Because sci-fi movie I'm not familiar with? Yes, please. Nope. Okay. The film, because it's what's referenced here. AKA Operation Moon, a 1950 American Technicolor science fiction film, independently produced by George Pal and directed by Irving Pichel. Stars John Archer, Warner Anderson, Tom Powers, Dick Weston, and Grace Stafford. Distributed in the US and UK. Oh! Hello! Welcome, Raiders! Hi, 16-bit Eric. I hope that you were having fun traversing the Delta Quadrant in the Voyager video game. Welcome in, everybody. If you're new here, I am Rogan27. I'm Rogan27. I'm also Anthony Wright de Hernandez, Community Collections Archivist at Virginia Tech. And this is Archival Adventures, the stream where we look at things from the archives and see what we can learn. Right now, we are doing our second episode on the care and feeding of rockets. Yes, indeed. The care and feeding of rockets. Using the papers of John Clark, who was instrumental, or instrumental in helping develop some of the first liquid rocket propellants that ended up being used in the Apollo program. And he's also, he was a science fiction author. We are focused on his rocket propellants today. In the future, we will look at his science fiction, but in the document that we were just looking at, he referenced this movie Destination Moon based on a Robert Heinlein story, and so I was getting a pressy on that because I was unfamiliar with it. Anyway, if anybody here was not following 16-Bit Eric, I highly encourage you to do so. You will not regret it. It is a wonderful community, and you'll have a wonderful time. Okay. And welcome, everybody. If you think that very fast reading of highly technical science and mathematics content that the person reading it doesn't actually fully understand would be entertaining, that's today's episode. I also do other things like once a month we're reading the diary of a 14-year-old girl from the beginning of the American Civil War. She lived in Mississippi, and yeah, she's a teenage girl. She says, "Oh my God," a lot. And that was 1862. Anyway, we just look at random things from the archives and see what we can learn. But yeah, welcome in, everybody. Hi, Astra Election. Hi, Castabras. Yes, rockets are hungry. Okay, so Destination Moon. The first major U.S. science fiction film to deal with the practical, scientific, and engineering challenges of space travel and to speculate on what a crewed expedition to the moon would look like. Noted science fiction author Robert Heinlein contributed to the screenplay. Interesting. Okay. I was not super familiar with, like, I wasn't familiar with that Heinlein one at all. But okay. The hypothetical atomic-powered rocket in Bob Heinlein's picture Destination Moon had a specific impulse of 943 seconds, which is something that rocket men like to dream about. You will see by the equation for specific impulse that whatever lowercase Greek letter that is, I really can't tell if it's a gamma or a zeta. It's one of the two, and it's likely gamma because in discussing these topics, he has used gamma in equations before, but it does not look like a gamma. It looks more like a zeta. But the way that the pen moved to create that mark is not the way you move the pen to make a lowercase zeta. I'm just going to call it gamma from now on. You will see by the equation for specific impulse that gamma is just as important as the energy of reaction per pound of propellant, and it is in calculating gamma that the difficulty comes in. There are several methods of doing it, ranging from fantastically tedious to ridiculously simple. Be Right UK, thank you so much for the 62-month resubscription. Greetings, esteemed archivist. It's me, Be Right. I have returned. Wait, that's a clumsy way to say it. Is there a better? I don't know. Be right back. It's good to see you. Okay, I love this. There are several methods of doing it, ranging from fantastically tedious to ridiculously simple. In general, the easier the calculation, the less accurate is the result, but none of the methods are completely satisfactory or reliable. We just don't know exactly what happens inside a rocket chamber. However, if you want a quick and dirty method for tablecloth engineering, gamma will probably be fairly close to 0.5 for many combinations, assuming a chamber pressure of 300 pounds per square inch and an exhaust pressure of 14.7. We do know that there are certain factors that affect, in one way or the other, a high chamber pressure, that affect in one way or the other. A high chamber pressure increases it, and a high exhaust pressure decreases it. That is, a motor running at sea level and expanding its exhaust gases to 14.7 psi will be less efficient than one running at 50 miles altitude and expanding its exhaust nearly to a vacuum. Yes, we are about to be hit by an advertac, so I will pause to let the unavoidable advertisements go so that we don't have people getting hit with ads if they join, and I will see you in a couple of minutes. Maybe. I don't know. Hello. I believe that the advertisements should be done now, and we can dive right back in. Okay. Because I don't know how much more of this one we're going to look at. There are others that seem also just as interesting. Okay. You know, I have sort of lost my place anyway. I'm going to move on from this one, actually, and we'll look at a different one. Because, well, this one was interesting. It wasn't quite as entertaining as last time. But I have two that seem very interesting. Let's start here. I don't know if this is specifically related to rockets, but it is chemistry, which seems to be the main focus of his rocket stuff. Let me see what's in here first. And it is going to be hard for you all to see. Figure out if I can make it visible. That isn't going to work. Okay. 1 second. I have possibilities. The question is, can I get them to work well? Okay, it's at an angle, but... Oh, it's upside down. We won't be keeping this on the screen. I just wanted to show it at the start. It's backwards. It was upside down and backwards because that's me. Come on. Line it up. And now it's out of focus. Okay. This is the periodic chart of the chemical elements. As you may know. But probably not as you know it. Because this folder is titled A New Periodic Chart. And we're off. Okay, I need to make that easier to do. Because this is not the first time I've had to do that. Anyway. It looks like this was actually printed at one point. We do have the drafts. But we also have the actual print from November 1933 in the Journal of Chemical Education. It looks like a number of these are just responses to submitting it. Oh, look. The same as on the image, only easier to see. Anyway, let us read and learn what this highly unusual periodic arrangement of the elements is all about. It's not terribly long. A new periodic chart. John D. Clark, Stanford University, California. So this would have been when he was studying for his PhD. 22 previous periodic arrangements of the elements have been briefly discussed. A new arrangement based on a flattened spiral has been proposed. Some definite advantages of this arrangement have been pointed out. It is universally recognized. That's a great way to start something out, because nothing is universally recognized. But anyway, it is universally recognized that there are several defects in Mendeleev's periodic arrangement of the elements. Among these are the similar arrangement of the main and the subgroup elements of each group, the extremely doubtful position of hydrogen, the inadequate representation of the rare earths, and finally, the psychological fault in a lack of emphasis on the continuity of the series of elements, breaking them arbitrarily, as it does, into periods of 8, 18, and 32 elements. These defects have long been recognized, and a great many different representations of the table of the elements have been suggested. It will perhaps be convenient in criticizing some of these representations to list first some of the qualities of an ideal periodic chart over and above those possessed by Mendeleev's. It should be as simple as possible. It should separate the main and the subgroups, but should at the same time universally recognize, this will not end well, exactly, Stavros. It should separate the main and the subgroups, but should at the same time show the relationship between them. It should have a natural and inevitable location for hydrogen, showing its relationship both to the alkali metals and to the halogens, but at the same time emphasizing its unique position in the series. It should emphasize the idea of continuity as well as that of periodicity. It should treat the rare earths adequately, but should not confuse them with the other groups. I have no idea what he means by that, but that's fine. It should be convenient in shape and in representation. The attempts that have been made to produce a more nearly perfect representation may be classified first as two-dimensional or three-dimensional. The two-dimensional representations may be divided again into two groups, the discontinuous and the continuous arrangements. Among the former, there are three general types. That of Mendeleev, which has the defects already mentioned. In case anybody's not familiar, image. Bring image. Oh, come on. There. In case anybody isn't familiar, the periodic table of the elements. This way. Where, for some reason, they have, like, hydrogen is a non-metal. Is it, though? I mean, according to his writing, it belongs with the metals. Metals, F block, of course, because it would be too wide otherwise. So F block is down here. D block, which is the transition metals, sometimes excluding group 12, of course. P block, excluding helium. Some elements near the dashed staircase are sometimes called metalloids, and then noble gases. This is Mendeleev's organization, in case anybody was unclear. Let's see. The type produced by Werner, whose periods are of unequal length, leaving many blank spaces not corresponding to missing elements. There's no depiction of it in here, and I'm not going to go spending a bunch of time searching for it. If anybody does want to look up Werner's periodic arrangement of the elements and drop a link, I'll happily show it. whose periods are of unequal length, leaving many blank spaces not corresponding to missing elements, and which, although it provides extensively for the rare earths and separates the main groups from the subgroups, neither shows the relationship between the latter two nor provides satisfactorily for hydrogen. It is also somewhat awkward and unsymmetrical in appearance. Deming's arrangement is a compromise between Mendeleev's and Werner's, being 18 spaces across instead of 8 or 9 in the former and 32 in the latter. It compresses the rare earths into a space normally occupied by one element, provides, though awkwardly, for hydrogen, and shows the relationship between the main and the subgroups. It is probably one of the best of the discontinuous two-dimensional arrangements, but is a trifle complicated. Antropov has published an improved chart that is closely related to Deming's. The continuous types of arrangement are more varied. They usually take a spiral form of one sort or another, of which there are 4 general types. Hi, Bastinsider, sorry. The elements are arranged spirally around hydrogen, making 1 complete turn for a short period and 2 for a long. Partington's chart is of this type. Although hydrogen is not exactly at the center and the arrangement suffers to that extent, the rare earths are arranged radially. However, the subgroups are too closely tied to the main groups, as in the Mendeleev table. Yeah, I'm also awkward and unsymmetrical in appearance, and most people are. Wells's arrangement is also of this type. Tansley has used the opposite arrangement with uranium in the center and hydrogen on the rim over fluorine, which is not completely satisfactory. Likewise, the rare earths are arranged spirally with the other elements, which arrangement does not, in general, agree with their chemical nature. The elements are arranged spirally around hydrogen, making 1 complete turn for a long period and 1 for 2 short periods. This arrangement has the disadvantage that it separates lithium from sodium, and shows the former as being more closely related to copper, and similarly for other elements of the first period. Lowe and Erdmann use this arrangement, although they omit hydrogen. They arrange the rare earths spirally, confusing them with the other groups, while Ryberg arranges them radially. Johnson-Stoney's arrangement is similar to that of Lowe and Erdmann. This arrangement, of course, fails to show the relationship between the main and the subgroups, and separates the first 2 periods. Honestly, before reading this, I had never actually considered that there were other ways to arrange the elements. When I thought of elements, my brain went to the periodic table of the elements, which the universally used one today is Mendeleev's. It had not even entered my mind that there were other arrangements. And reading through this, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a ton of them. Caswell uses a spiral which makes 1 turn for either a long or a short period. In the case of the latter, there is a gap of approximately 220 degrees between the second and third groups. In the outer turns, this gap is of course filled by the transition elements. The rare earths are given the space of 1 element. This arrangement has the serious disadvantage that it implies a break between the second and third groups in the continuity of the first 2 periods. A double or figure 8 spiral may be used, 1 loop being centered on hydrogen for the main groups, and the other for the transition groups. Nodder uses an arrangement of this type. It is unduly complicated, and the relationship between the main and the subgroups is not distinctly indicated, and unfortunately the rare earths are misplaced, but it is more satisfactory than most of the other arrangements. 3-dimensional arrangements show even more variation than do the 2-dimensional schemes. The commonest arrangement is the helix, simple or complex. The best known helical arrangement, the single-centered type, is that of Harkin's, which makes 2 loops of unequal radii for each long period. This model is quite satisfactory in most respects. It has a logical position for hydrogen, although it does not show its relationship with the 1 and 7 groups. It separates the main and the subgroups, but shows the relationship between them, and it disposes of the rare earths in a most satisfactory manner, ranging them vertically along the aluminum group vertical line. Its major fault is the arrangement of the radioactive isotopes in a similar manner. Emerson's helix makes 1 loop per short period and 1 per long. The relationship between the A and B subgroups is obscured, the rare earths are confused with the other elements, and several hypothetical proto-elements are inserted between hydrogen and helium and before hydrogen. Uh, Stinzing uses a somewhat similar helix, which is arranged conically with hydrogen at the tip of the cone where its relationships are quite clear. The relationship of the main groups to the subgroups is clearer than it is in Emerson's arrangement and clearer than it is in the somewhat similar arrangements of the coordinates, which also suffers from the poor position of hydrogen, showing only its relationship to helium. Okay. It isn't very long, but I'm not going to finish reading the entire thing. I just want to look up some of these helical ones, because now I'm curious. Ooh. Types of periodic tables. I'm also unduly complicated. Yeah. Okay. I know many, many words. Since Dmitry Mendeleev formulated the periodic law in 1871 and published an associated periodic table of chemical elements, authors have experimented with varying types of periodic tables for teaching aesthetic or philosophical purposes. This one's very different and gives a lot less information. Like, generally, the squares on the periodic table give you more than just the letter symbol. Earlier in 1869, Mendeleev had mentioned different layouts, including short, medium, or even cubic forms. It appeared to him that the latter, three-dimensional form, would be the most natural approach, but that attempts at such a construction have not led to any real results. On spiral periodic tables, Mendeleev steadfastly refused to depict the system as such. His objection was that he could not express this function mathematically. Can't express a spiral mathematically? In 1934, George Quam, a chemistry professor at Long Island University, and Mary Quam, a librarian at the New York Public Library, compiled and published a bibliography of 133 periodic tables using a five-fold topology: 1 short, 2 long, including triangular, 3 spiral, 4 helical, and 5 miscellaneous. 133 different kinds? The three principal types are helical, rectilinear, and spiral. Internet database of periodic tables? Hold, please. I just... This is amazing to me. I'm just very interested now in the different representations of the elements. Kaputinsky's pyramid. I can't believe I never thought of the fact that it would be represented in, it could be represented in an endless variety of ways. Like, I just never thought about it. Einstein's Annus Mirabilis. It doesn't give a picture of it, though. Schrödinger. The Tableau périodique des éléments. Who is this one? La Corsale. That one's pretty interesting looking. Von Neumann. Amazing. I'm just I know. I need 3D ones. By type. Three-dimensional formulations. The random ads that it wants to show. Lovely. Well, we've got going all the way back to 1800s. Let's pick one. I need to, because it just says Janet's, although I'm sure it's Jeanette's, but wow. It is definitely a spiral tube. Chicago Museum of Science and Industry? It's interesting to me the random ads that pop up when you don't allow tracking for ad purposes. Oh, this is the periodic table. Three-dimensional, literal, uh, physical one. Kaputinsky's pyramid, we saw that. Spherical. Unfortunately, this wonderful formulation from a Union Carbide advertisement, 1960, does not work. It is not, in this author's opinion, possible to wrap the periodic table onto a sphere. Janet's not a robot. Rare earth pop out. Mazars. Mazers. I don't know. Some of these are extraordinarily complex. Okay, what's... Look, good periodic table of the elements. The geometric organization of dimension, aka good. Look at the gaps! Like, it's got huge gaps. What's Kubert gonna jump up? Ukrainian, gyroscopic. "3D strange" periodic table. 4D. Four-dimensional. Great. I'm trying to get to just the frog periodic table. Lego. The Lego periodic table of the elements. The periodic tower of elements is a complex Lego project designed for students with some chemistry knowledge. It serves as an educational tool to help with learning basic chemistry and physics concepts. Building this model enhances skills such as patience, balance, attention to detail, and innovation qualities essential for mastering abstract scientific ideas. Additionally, the model offers insights into architectural stability concepts like spiral staircases. It's a form of Schaltenbrand's 1920 helical periodic table. Interesting. I had no idea, and I could literally rabbit hole on this forever. So I'm gonna move us along. Honestly, chemistry was one of my favorite subjects in high school. It was one of the only mathematical processes I actually enjoyed doing was chemical formula calculations. Confidential. This one is High Energy Liquid Monopropellants Report. I know that sounds dry. His writing is not dry. 2 members of the HELM Committee. High Energy Liquid Monopropellants. Gentlemen, at long last, you now see before you a final draft of the composite thinking of our group, modified by the minority reporter. I am extremely sorry for the long delay in transmitting this draft for your corrections, however. There are a number of reasons for the delay, one of which most of you recognize was the delay in getting your drafts to me. Incidentally, I never did hear from Brother Gantz. Castavers, I suppose one could arrange them by whatever factor you were interested in. I wonder what an arrangement would look like based on stackability from yum to... I don't know that word. Intant death? You couldn't figure out chemical equations even when you had the answer in front of you. I don't know. It was one of the things... I don't know. I just enjoyed it. But now I can't even read them. It's been 30 years. the jab there at all of them. Like, yeah, it was delayed because you all delayed in getting your reports to me. And I never did get one from Brother Gantz. You will notice that I took the liberty of not following in every detail the results of our last conference. I found in dictating this report that it became quite redundant in trying to ready section entitled Conclusions, another section Recommendations, and a third section on Discussion. I therefore combined the conclusions and recommendations into one section. The report, in its present state, is redundant in spots, as you will see. I recommend that you read the report in detail and come up with definitive corrections and recommendations for the final draft. I should like to call your attention... I should like to call to your attention the fact that there is some discrepancy in opinion between various committee members with respect to specific classes of monopropellants. For example, Griffin's section on Archigel propellants advocates omitting positive recommendations with respect to this class of propellants. I quote, I know, so much shade. I quote, because the Archigel bipropellant requires special handling and feeding and presents special combustion problems not related to conventional liquid propellants, it is not considered to fall within the scope of the high-energy monopropellant group, since this propellant system has merits which make it a possible contender in the high-performance for propellant competition. It is mentioned here so that its omission from the report cannot be considered as a rejection or an indication that it is without merit. Hey, we got another reference to feeding propellants. Or to feed, well, this time feeding propellants, but John Clark advocates work on CHNF compounds, whereas Glassman implies this class of materials should be omitted. I quote Dr. Glassman, single organic or boron-containing compounds in which the oxidizing element is found in the structures CHNF, BNF, and which are to give high performance as monopropellants must necessarily contain high energy bonds or groups. Inherently, one would expect these compounds would be neither thermally nor mechanically stable. Further, the synthesis all appear complex and costly. What is this note? This material contains information affecting the national defense of the United States within the meaning of the espionage laws, Title 18 U.S.C. Section 793 and 794, the transmission or revelation of which in any manner to an unauthorized person is prohibited by law. Of course, it is no longer confidential, but Clark indicates that synthesis attempts on the BNF system should continue, but it must be recognized that this system is a very long shot. My personal opinion is that this class of materials is a complete waste of time, at least from the approaches suggested by Stouffer. If you run across any statements in the draft as submitted which are contrary to your opinions, please come to the next meeting prepared to discuss your views so that we may finalize this report at the earliest possible date. The draft, as written, does not contain too many references. Your combined assistance in beefing up the bibliography in the area of monopropellants discussed in the report would seem to me to be very desirable. It is requested that each of you jot down appropriate references from your readily available report files to supplement the few that have been included with the draft. Recent correspondence from Bill Sheehan indicates they are going to have a working group sometime during the next 2 weeks of September or during the month of October. It would be extremely nice if we could get this report completed by that meeting. I had tentatively thought of meeting at Princeton University since it appeared more centrally located for everyone except me. If this meets with your combined approval and Dr. Glassman is still willing, and able to offer us the facilities at Princeton, I am still in favor of meeting there. I should like to recommend meeting on September 15 and 16 or September 19 and 20 if this is agreeable and possible. I recognize that the 15th and 16th are the last 2 days of the ACS meeting in New York, but I'm hoping that this does not conflict with any of your plans. Please contact me by telephone, collect if you are broke, as to your desires. If we cannot agree on these 4 dates, we revert to Sheehan's procedure of sending you a calendar and having each of you check off your most appropriate dates so that we will get a mutual agreement among the 5 or 6 Indians involved. Historical terms. I doubt very seriously if we could make it before the week of the 12th, since this hardly would give the various members an opportunity to reevaluate the rough draft. I'm looking forward to our get-together and hope that the draft as presented is not too unpalatable to you. Very truly yours, Louis R. Rapp. P.S. Is recommendation number 5 as written to General? I have no idea who Louis Rapp is, but I also don't know the date this was written. August 1960. Confidential. High energy liquid monopropellants. Draft not to be published. Well, I'm publishing it. Online. Right now. Forward. During the past several years, considerable interest has been displayed by various agencies of the Department of Defense in the the recommendation, the reference to call and collect if you're broke. I know. The sense of humor is really good. Considerable interest has been displayed by various agencies of the Department of Defense in the development of high-energy liquid monopropellants for potential application in primary thrust units. This interest has manifested itself primarily in the synthesis and formulation of new materials with minor regard to actual application in rocket systems. In order to more properly assess the true potential of these materials and, if possible, the applicability of monopropellants to primary thrust applications, the Department of Defense believed that an objective analysis should be made of the current research and development on high-energy monopropellants. Such an analysis could then serve as a guideline for future activities in the field of high-energy liquid monopropellants. My tongue does not want to say high-energy liquid monopropellants very much anymore. To accomplish this objective, the Director of Defense Research and Engineering, through its advisory panel on fuels and lubricants, established a high-energy liquid monopropellant HELM ad hoc committee of the Working Group on Propellants. Members appointed to this committee were as follows. Louis R. Rapp, Chairman, Aerojet General Corporation, E. Sinclair Gantz, General Electric, Alan Effie, United States Air Force, Irving Glassman, Princeton, D.M. Griffin, Technoproducts, Philip Pomerantz, Bureau of Naval Weapons. So it doesn't seem like... Oh, here we go. I was like, as to the request of Mr. Pomerantz, Dr. John Clark, U.S. Naval Air Rocket Test Station, has been attending committee functions as an ex officio member for the Bureau of Weapons. The Bureau of Weapons. Three methods of approach were employed by the committee in accomplishing the objectives set forth. First, the current literature on high-energy monopropellants was reviewed. Second, a series of briefings was held with the various service personnel and selected contractors to establish the current state-of-the-art of monopropellants and to ascertain the direction of the contemplated future research. Third, in an effort to ascertain the utility of high-energy liquid monopropellants for primary thrust applications, a search for a comprehensive system analysis comparing high-energy monopropellants with the best storable liquid bipropellant and solid propellant systems was undertaken through a questionnaire sent to members of the rocket, aircraft, and missile industries. The conclusion of this study, the envisioned report, consists of 3 main sections, followed by appendices describing the meetings of the group and a listing of the personnel and agencies contacted during the study. The introduction, which briefly establishes the ground rules for the study as well as the terminology employed in describing classes of monopropellants, is followed by the basic recommendations of the committee. The last section contains a brief technical discussion of the more important factors considered which led to the recommendations presented. A cursory glance at the rocket propellant literature is sufficient to indicate that monopropellants have been considered and studied as power and gas-producing sources for many years. This interest in monopropellants grew with the rocket industry, but at a rate considerably less than that experienced by its bipropellant and solid propellant counterpart. Nonetheless, the rate of growth was sufficient to be recognized by the Bureau of Aeronautics in September 1953, when the Bureau sponsored the first conference on monopropellants held at the Wyandotte Chemicals Corporation. Subsequent to that time, conferences had been held essentially on a biannual basis under sponsorship of various agencies of the Department of Defense. A review of the proceedings of these various meetings reveals a wide variety of applications considered apropos for monopropellants. For example, in reference 1, discussions are found describing monopropellant uses in torpedo propulsion, aircraft gas turbine starters, auxiliary power units, boundary layer control applications, emergency and auxiliary power for helicopters, ram rocket applications, liquid JTOW units, liquid gun propellants, and others. Although the ad hoc committee recognizes the importance of the potential usefulness of monopropellants for applications such as those just mentioned, the specific objective of the study necessarily centered the committee's attention on high-energy liquid monopropellants for primary thrust applications. As such, no attempts were made to evaluate and no comments are made in this present report with respect to the applicability of monopropellants for uses other than primary thrust applications. The recommendations submitted herein apply solely to this specific category and in no manner should be interpreted as applicable to other uses of monopropellants. I'm going to skip a bit, but wow. Trying to read this at speed when I've never even looked at it before is a bit tongue-twisty. I want to find their recommendations / conclusions. Apparently, they have a lot of them. Amazing. It's all highly technical, but really sort of fascinating to me. Really, what was most entertaining about this was the cover letter. The rest of it is just highly technical science stuff, which is interesting, but not quite as entertaining. Okay, what else do we have? This one seems kind of short. Let's see what it's like. Remarks of Chairman Session on High Energy Monopropellants, 3rd Monopropellant Conference. And I'm assuming, yeah, this is going to be Clark. So, gentlemen, it is a well-known fact that everybody in the rocket business is crazy. When taxed with this, rocket engineers in general deny the allegation and insist that their reputation derives solely from the propulsion boys. They themselves are merely harmless aerodynamicists, warhead specialists, and tubin crap artists. Did we read this already? I don't know. I'm going to read it anyway. We might have done this at the end of the last stream, but whatever. The propulsion boys, in turn, claim to be only a flock of innocent plumbers. The propellant people, they aver, are the real focus of the infection. Don't blame us, they protest, for that gang. They just happened to us. The propellant people not only admit to being crazy, they glory in it. Just look at the monopropellant field, they chortle. That's where we keep the violent cases. But even the monopropellant people are reluctant to talk about the characters in high-energy monopropellants. After all, there are limits. Gentlemen, you have arrived. Allow me to welcome you to the session on high-energy monopropellants. Now, there is one slight difficulty in running a session on high-energy monoprops. Thank you so much for abbreviating it. Nobody seems to know exactly how high is high energy. Therefore, for the purposes of this meeting, I am defining a high energy monoprop as one that is comparable in performance to the workhorse bipropellant systems with an experimental impulse of, say, 200 seconds or more at 300 pounds pressure. If anybody wishes to dispute this definition, he can write to the Times about it. Now, in order to get energy, you generally have to burn something. And in order to get high energy, you have to burn it fairly completely. In other words, you must have a good oxygen balance in a high energy monopropellant, with such a stoichiometry that the number of oxidizing valences available approaches the number of reducing valences. I know the word is stoichiometry, and my brain says, but I don't remember what it means. Therefore, dictionary. The calculation of the quantities of chemical elements or compounds involved in chemical reactions. Hey! It's the math of chemistry. That thing that I liked about chemistry. The pure compounds at present available, which possess such an oxygen balance, are otherwise because women would never. The pure compounds at present available, which possess such an oxygen balance and are otherwise suitable, can probably be counted on the fingers of a garter snake. Nitromethane. This is me running into, I don't remember how to read this damn stuff. But hang on. Methanide? No, it can't be. Three hydrogen atoms bonded to one central carbon atom. I would not have assumed methanide. Nitrous oxide. Hey, we got nitrous. Okay, methyl nitrate, methanide, and nitrous oxide. On the other hand, while it was a nearly optimum oxygen balance, 7 reducing to 6 oxidizing valences, is merely a slice off one side of the nitroglycerin molecule and possesses the excitable properties of that interesting substance. Yes, can be counted on the fingers of a creature with no fingers, Castabras. I do like the way he writes. A more flexible approach is that of mixtures, solutions of oxidizers in fuels, or vice versa. These solutions can be either non-electrolytic or electrolytic ionic in nature. Examples of the former are mixtures of alcohol and hydrogen peroxide or of nitrous oxide and a hydrocarbon. The ionic mixtures consist of solutions of a salt in a liquid fuel or oxidizer and fall into 4 general types. Okay, circa 1960. 1. An oxidizing salt in a fuel with the salt unrelated to the solvent. Lithium nitrate. Lithium nitrate in hydrazine is an example. Many things to look up. An oxidizing salt in a fuel with the salt belonging to the same solvent system, hydrazine nitrate in hydrazine. With these systems, it is generally difficult to dissolve enough salt to get a respectable oxygen balance. An easier approach is to use the oxidizer as the solvent, as in a reducing salt dissolved in an unrelated oxidizer, an amine nitrate in hydrogen peroxide. P.S. Don't. I wonder what would happen. 4. A reducing salt dissolved in an oxidizer with the salt belonging to the same solvent system, an amine nitrate in nitric acid. What would happen with an amine nitrate in hydrogen peroxide? Oh. It forms nitric acid, which I would assume is in some way basically nitroglycerin. So yeah, P.S. Don't. Most of the propellants to be discussed today are mixtures. 5 papers will be presented. The first 2, we're not going to be presenting 5 papers. This is his speech as introduction. Anyway, the first 2, which will be discussed together, concern a propellant which has been made up and run. The 3rd and 4th concern mixtures which have been made up without immediately lethal results, but have not yet been fired. And the last paper is about propellants, which are, at present anyway, only a hopeful gleam in a chemist's eye. The first paper by Mr. Irving Forston, chief engineer, is concerned with the original work at NARTS on the monopropellant Isolde, and with what is being done with it now. Mr. Forston, Irving, take it away. Thank you, Irving. Dr. Edward Sinclair, Gantz, a supervisor propellants unit of GE, will now tell you what GE has done with Isolde. And then the 2 papers will be open for discussion, Dr. Gantz. Ed, the house is yours. And then, let's see, okay, paper 2. Thank you, Ed. Before the discussion starts, I should like to mention that preliminary work is going on at both NARTS and GE on quaternary amine nitrates in nitric acid. These propellants appear to be very similar to Isolde in most respects, but are very much less shock sensitive and appear to possess a remarkably high degree of thermal stability. 24 hours in a sealed bomb at 160 C, 320 Fahrenheit, doesn't touch off an exothermic decomposition. They should make regenerative cooling a lot easier. The floor is now open for discussion. Please give your name and affiliation the first time you have anything to say. Nobody ever listens to that at a conference. Discussion. The theoretical performance limits of the Isolde family is about 226 seconds, since when a solution of an amine nitrate in acid is burned, about 1/3 of the energy from the formation of the exhaust gases is used up in decomposing the acid and the salt. An obvious way to increase performance, therefore, is to try to find propellants with a lower heat of formation. This can be done in certain non-electrolytic solutions whose constituents require much less energy to decompose than the 41 kilocalories needed to break up a mole of that thing that I looked up before. Of HNO3, which I should just know, but my brain, nitric acid. Or the 117 kilocalories that you need to reduce to its elements a mole of diisopropyl amine nitrate. Many such non-electrolytic solutions of a fuel and an oxidizer possess a somewhat precarious stability, but this has not deterred certain members of Das Morgenstern-Branisch group from experimenting with them. I have no idea what that means. The only word I get from that, I get the something something group. It's all in lowercase, so I don't know if it's a proper noun or not, but proper nouns are generally lowercase in German, so Morgenstern Branisch. Anyway, we're running out of time, and there's only like a page and a half left, so I'm not going to pause. Among the leading lights of this group is Dr. Charles Tate, supervisor at Liquid Propellants Research of Wyandotte, who will tell us what happens when you mix tetranitromethane with an appropriate fuel. Dr. Tate, Charlie, you're on. Paper 3. Thanks, Charlie. Discussion. In order to get really high performance, you have to use oxidizer with a negligible heat of formation and with the minimum possible mass for its oxidizing potential, and with it a fuel of an extremely high specific heat of combustion. Mixing such things is not ordinarily recommended by safety societies, but Dr. Clyde McKinley, Director of Research of Air Products, who, as you see, is still among us, has done it with liquid oxygen and liquid methane. A performance of 260 seconds is worth fighting for, and Dr. McKinley will tell us how he fared in the battle. Dr. McKinley. Paper number 4. Thank you, Dr. McKinley. Discussion. No discussion of monopropellants would be complete without some mention of the exotic fuels, or without a good look at fluorine oxidizers for the same. Dr. Jack Gould, head of organic chemical section of Stouffer, is one of the optimistic souls who hope to put such things into a monopropellant, and he's going to tell us how he is going to do it. Dr. Gould. Okay, Jack. Let's have your reading from the crystal ball. Paper number 5. Thank you, Jack. Discussion. Okay, this is the end. We have covered the field of high-energy monopropellants from such relatively mild items as Isolde Clear to, and perhaps across, the borders of Never Never Land. If there is one thing can be concluded from the presentations, it is that whatever else they may lack, the people in the field do not lack imagination or a willingness to try anything once. And something will come from this willingness. Monoprops with an impulse of 260 are not here today, but I, for one, wouldn't bet that they won't be here 5 years from now. We are giving the solids peoples competition today. Tomorrow, a liquid monoprop may take us to the moon. Thank you. Oh boy. It's always fun when remarks start with, "It is a well-known fact that everybody in the rocket business is crazy." And that is very much in line with how he writes in his non-fiction. So I'm very curious to see what his actual, like, science fiction stuff is like. which honestly I'm tired of waiting for. So next time we visit him, we're looking at sci-fi. There are other things I could look at, like his nonfiction stuff on dimensionality, but I want to get to the sci-fi. So, we are officially out of time today. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I hope that it was in some way interesting, comprehensible, or followable, even. I found it really, really fascinating. Oh, lovely. Credits are still broken. Lovely. Did someone say monocrop? No, monoprop. Monopropellant. I don't know what's up with the credits. I keep trying, but they're just broken. I'm gonna have to find another solution? I don't know. Because no matter what I do, they are just broken. Oh no, we don't want ad breaks. Stop that. Oh dear. Well. Ba, 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 ba. Anyway, I am your host, Rogan27, aka Anthony Wright Day Hernandez. They're rolling, but they're incomplete. Thank you very much, Rogue Ship One. Thank you, Stephen Joyce, for the resubscription. Thank you, 16-bit Eric, for the raid. Thank you, Be Right UK, for the resubscription. Thank you to Hannah for the ridiculously long streak. And, of course, we have been listening to music from Lo-Fi Girl. That is going to be where we leave it off today. I'm going to go ahead and set up a raid. We'll be heading on over to Stephen Joy's because Stephen is pretty awesome, and we like Stephen. And tiny hats are the thing to ask Stephen about. Just ask for one, and you will receive. But yeah, we'll head on over there. Next week, Archivist Kira will be joining me, and we will be talking pie. So, yeah, we'll be talking lots of history and archives stuff about pie. So, yeah, hopefully you'll join for that. And then I have other things coming up. I don't remember what they are. We'll find out. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Hopefully I will see all of you again soon. Until I do, keep exploring history, everybody.